here.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Meet the Candidates debate here in Southampton. My name is Ray Brunowski. I'm a visiting friend here from Holyoke. Happy to moderate this evening's forum with our fine candidates for Select Board. How this evening will work is that each candidate will have 3 minutes to give an introduction. They have then been given 3 questions in advance prior to this evening that they will answer. The first question they'll have 3 minutes to answer. The remaining 2 they'll have 2 minutes to answer. We will collect audience questions from you following their introductory remarks. So if you want to make sure that those are prepared, please make sure that there's only 1 question per card and there's 1 card per person. And then we'll sort through that and get those after the questions that they've been submitted in advance. Following all the audience questions, and each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. So I think that we're all set, and we have a timekeeper here to make sure everyone knows where we're at.
30 seconds left, I'll give 1, and then at the end will be 2.
Okay. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start to my left and work down, and as we move through the questions, we'll just move down to each candidate, so each candidate has a chance to answer the question first, and we'll rotate that way if that's agreeable. Okay, so we'll start here with Charlie.
Good evening, everyone. We are now moving into the summer months. My name is Charlie Konecki. I've been a lifetime resident of the town of Southampton. I've raised my family here. Actually, I think I went to 3rd grade in this room. So I am very familiar with our community. I've been involved with many activities in this community. I've raised my family and did the sporting events throughout this town. I coached soccer, Little League softball, that kind of stuff over the years. Basically, this is my community. I've been here, I enjoy it. I have volunteered for years to take and make this community better. I think we have a very shining star here in this valley, just looking at the rolling hills and the way we live. And I see a great potential in this community. I used to be on the Board of Health in this town. I moved on to helping the city of East Hampton, and then I moved on being the state district health officer. So for the last 18 years of that career, my job as the district officer was to assist many of the cities and towns in this valley, actually 100 of them, relative to public health events. With that, it's given me a great understanding of how local government works and how state government works. And I believe that the last 3 years I've demonstrated this being selectman, and I'd like to continue this.
Now to Matt.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thanks, Margaret, for organizing this. Hello, my name is Matt Rowland. I was born in the Pioneer Valley, just over the border in Connecticut, and I've lived at 16 Mountain Road in Southampton with my wife and children just after the big snowstorm in 2011 that I'm sure you all remember. We plan to live out our lives here in this community and have already invested deeply in it. As some of you know, I work in healthcare. I work for a private company called Stryker Endoscopy and manage a large book of capital business in the surgical camera market. I'm in your ORs in this community every single day. I attended a small liberal arts college in Maine called Colby College. While at Colby, I double majored in economics and biology. I graduated summa cum laude and was selected into America's oldest and most prestigious academic honor society called Phi Beta Kappa. I believe that my education, work, and life experiences will lend themselves well for elected office. Lastly, since I've been in town, I have volunteered my time every season to coach youth athletics with my son and my daughter, namely the sports of basketball, soccer, and baseball. I plan to continue this long into the future as I enjoy developing the generation of tomorrow. My goal for the town is simple: establish and transparently execute a clear long-term strategy that allows for steady, balanced, and sustainable growth.
Now we'll move to the questions that the candidates received prior to tonight. So we'll start these questions, these set of questions with Francine, and then we'll move down from there. So I'll read the question first. If anyone needs me to repeat it as we go along, just let me know. The first question is, in recent months, the Southampton Select Board has discussed multiple opportunities and challenges, such as improving open space and roads, providing 24/7 emergency services, building a public safety complex, and the impact of the regional school agreement and funding, among others. How would you address these important town issues, and what skills do you bring to the discussion?
The skills that I bring to address big issues like the ones listed in the question are as follows. I have no pre-existing relationships or associations that will influence my decision-making ability in town. I am a neutral and unbiased and plan to make common sense decisions based on hard facts and data that can be transparently and easily conveyed to the Southampton community. I believe strong data rather than gut instinct and relationships should drive decision-making. This is how trust is built and how reasonable expectations for the future are set. This is how many major decisions are made in all of our homes, in the businesses that we work in, and should be the way that the government operates as well. In managing both personal and business decisions throughout my life, I've found that the answers to many questions can be derived from analyzing historical data and supported evidence. I believe that this is the best way to make clear, transparent decisions that are easily explained to the Southampton residents. Thank you.
I have an unfair advantage. I've been selectman for 3 years now. So what I'd like to approach is we need to understand that each of these goals requires an understanding of process in government. Each one of these topics we're talking about has different approaches, different funding streams. We need to understand that. I've been working towards that to establish myself in a number of different outside arenas to find funding. I've been elected to the Pioneer Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization. This organization is an elected body of the region's heads, the mayors, select board members that vote on the allocation of funding to improve roadways in our communities. There are 14 voting members for this Pioneer Valley. I was elected to represent 17 communities. Southampton is one of them. An example of what this funding stream does for our community is the Safe Routes for Schools. That is all federal and state highway that was used funding to take and build that last year. We're presently looking to rebuild Glendale Road. Again, that is going to be paid for by state and federal dollars. The resurfacing you're presently seeing right now of College Highway. Again, that came out of that committee that I sit on as a voting member. Future plans, I've been able to lobby so that they're putting about $6 million aside for the construction of the Greenway in hopefully 2019-2020 budget lines. Also lobbying to take and put money aside for the reconstruction of East Street. And we were able to lobby $1 million grant for the reconstruction of that bridge so we can hold that money in abeyance until we can find the additional money to finish that. In the area of the public safety complex, I've been the chair of this committee for some 12 years. And it's been a long 12 years. Presently, I'm seeking support from Senator Hubbison, and he's filed a bill to provide state funding of $1 million to help us with design and construction. The purpose of that is to take the burden away from the taxpayer, try to get this money from the state to at least start this process. I've also kept an open line of communications with the new property owner of College Highway to try to make sure that we actually can move forward and build it in that site. And that looks extremely promising. I was able in the last year to secure money out of the state budget of $60,000 for the installation of an emergency generator at this town building. This is going to enhance our service to the community during times of emergencies. I've also worked with the Select Board in the past 3 years to purchase 3 police cruisers for our aging fleet, and purchase a new brush truck, moving on with an ambulance. The schools, we've been having very positive votes. The Capital Committee, which I sit on also, has moved to take and fund things that were necessary, things as simple as a boiler to locking doors.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the second question. We'll start with Matt on this one. The question is, have you ever held public office before? If so, please explain your experience in public office, including what you believe your contributions have been and how they have positively affected your town, city, or etc. If you have never served in public office, please explain any experiences you've had that could contribute to the Select Board and the town of Southampton.
Thank you. In my nearly 35 years on this earth, I have not yet served in public office, but I hope to have the opportunity to do so for this community in the near future. I believe my life experiences have prepared me for this role. I have used my energy and my talents and education to do as much good for the community as possible. I volunteer my time every season of the year to coach youth sports, as I hope to form the leaders of the generation that will follow mine. I volunteer my time as a member of the President's Council at my alma mater, Colby College. In this role, I help to secure philanthropic high-value gifts and donations to the college that help provide financial assistance to students who qualify. In my professional life, I am solely responsible for a large book of surgical capital business across Connecticut and Massachusetts. I balance these budgets, manage a profit and loss, and make difficult but data-driven decisions on a daily basis to succeed and deliver results in my profession. The decisions that I make in my career have a direct effect on patient outcomes in this area. Last but certainly not least, I try to be the best dad and husband I can be to my wife Jackie and my 2 young children, Ben and Rachel. I'm trying to live a life that each of them will be proud of and look up to. After all, perhaps I'm also trying to emulate my father, who served on a select board in a town close by for nearly 20 years of my childhood while I was growing up. I desire to give back and to try to make things better through honesty and transparency. Thank you.
I've had numerous public office positions in the town and with the Commonwealth. I've served on boards and commissions such as zoning, public safety, design of Labrie Field, ambulance billing, which, by the way, brought in new revenues to the town. Prior to that, we did not charge for our ambulance service, and now we depend on it for that service, the funding. Board of Health, obviously the Select Board. I've even held positions such as field driver. When someone's cow or horse got loose, I'd be called to go catch it. I was a volunteer fireman and EMT for this town for a number of years. I was on the master plan as the member at large, so I've gone through the whole process of that being developed. And presently I'm appointed by the governor as a member of the Special Commission on Local and Regional Public Health as a representative of the workforce development, and we're overseeing the whole Commonwealth to determine where public health is going to be going in the next 10 years. And I'm also certified as a manager with the Commonwealth.
And the question is, the duties of select board members can easily require 12 to 20 hours of your commitment per week. Are you available and committed to the time required to be an involved member?
Simple answer is yes. I've been retired for the last 3 years now. I have a small consulting business where I provide assistance in many of the surrounding communities with public health issues. And I've always made myself available, especially in the last 3 years, to the residents as well as the staff of the town. I fully recognize that this is like a 20-hour-a-week position minimum to be selectman, and I've been chair for the last 2 years now, which compounds the amount of time that one puts into. And these times are not just evening meetings. There's a lot of activity that goes on during the daytime hours that you have to go to events or you have to take and do lobbying and stuff, and I recognize that, and I'm fine with it.
All right. Many members of the audience and various town boards already know that I did my due diligence prior to committing to pursue the selected position. If I commit to doing something, I will do it full force. Otherwise, I won't do it at all. I'm fully committed to the responsibilities of the select board. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and I can't wait to get started. Thank you.
Thanks. Apologize for that.
It's all right.
Now we'll move to the audience questions. Okay, we have some audience questions. And again, we'll start on my left here with Charlie and work our way down so each person gets a chance to answer the question first. We'll ask the same question of each of the candidates as we did earlier. and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions that were submitted from the audience. So first we start with Charlie again. What experience do you have managing budgets, particularly large budgets?
For 10 years, I served as the district health officer for Eastern Franklin Health District, which meant that I oversaw the operational budget of that health district, which required a number of towns to pay into it, much like a school district, and I ran that for some time. I also own and operate Twin Orchard Farm, which is a 140-acre horse farm in town, which obviously has its own operational budgets. So I have been involved in that. Plus, being on the select board, I've been inundated with the town budget for the last 3 years.
Okay, thank you. Matt.
Yes, so for the last 10 years of my professional life, I've worked in healthcare in various different roles, mostly in sales. And in all of those roles, I've had to manage a budget on a yearly basis of various different sizes. Most recently, the budgets that we're managing now are in the millions of dollar range, which are in line with the town's budget. We're also managing profit and loss statements as well, given the company that I work for. Personally, I've also, in the last several months, dug in quite a bit to the town's budget, and so I've been looking at it with the help of the members of the various committees to try to decipher it, understand it a bit better. I've gone through it in multiple Excel variations, just like I've done in my professional life, and I feel like I'm very versed in this. I'm a mathematical mind, for sure, and I'm looking forward to drilling into these things as it progresses.
Thanks. George? Do you feel the town should continue to try and pass overrides, 2.5 prop, or is it time to right-size our budget and work within the funds we have?
I agree with a lot of the things that Francine said. I think that having looked at some of the history of the town, I know that we have frequently asked for overrides. Many of you know that I've spent a great deal of time trying to educate people on the current status of the town and the departments and this current override. I firmly believe that this is the year to reset the clock. The town does need a reset in terms of its money and finances, and this is the year for it. There's a lot of documentation, a lot of education, a lot of facts that various people have put together in town on these topics. If you care to educate yourself, we have a lot of these things available and can easily get them to you. But like Francine, I mean, the town going forward needs to manage its finances like we do in our own homes. I am a fiscally conservative individual at heart, and I like most of you, you can't overspend your money that you have at your own house, so therefore you can't do it in your own government. With that being said, though, the government's a little bit of a different animal in that, you know, a lot of our budget somehow, in some ways, comes from the state, and if state pulls back some of their funds, it comes from the taxpayers to try to prop up some of these services. This is basically what's happening across many of the town departments this year, and is the main reason why this override is being asked for this year. Do I believe in doing this every single year? Absolutely not. However, I think that a reset every now and then is required, and I believe that this year is the year for it. Thank you.
Well, being the last one, I agree with everything that's been said. That made it simple for me. We really need to set the clock and get this started again, keep moving. No, I'm not in favor of doing an override after this one, but this one must pass. If you notice by the last 3 years of what I've been working on is soft money to try to bring in stuff into the town, but you still need to have the core government operating, and the core government operation is based on your budget. This needs to happen this year.
Thanks very much. We'll move the next question. We'll start with Matt. Have you consistently voted in previous elections, and why or why not?
Yes, so I registered to vote rather recently, in fact, and the reason for that is I actually had to hold a driver's license in the state of Connecticut for my job for many years, despite living and owning a home in town. However, in recent elections, the last two, I have been able to vote in them. Was that the rest of the question?
Yeah. Have you consistently voted, and why or why not?
Yep.
I'm very proud to say that in 40 years of being allowed to vote, I cannot recall not voting in any election in this community. I've always been involved in this town and always voted, and tried to be at every town meeting that I possibly could be on. And you can actually look at town reports and see my name way back when doing stuff in the town. So, yeah, I've been doing this forever.
It's been stated that a sewer system is not possible in town. What other means can we use to attract commercial business?
I, first of all, want everyone to understand that back in the 70s and 80s, we did a comprehensive study of sewers in this town. And I also hold a license in soils and septic and everything else. And there is the possibility of putting package plants in this town that do not require connections to municipal sewer lines for groundwater discharge. So there is the potential to create commercial operations in limited sizes, in limited areas. If you think that the sewage discharge is the only prohibited factor, you're incorrect. There needs to be much more environmentally impact studies done to determine soil classifications, volumes of water being discharged, types of materials being discharged, to be able to enhance any type of industrial commercial operation in town. And when you look at commercial operations and you're looking at office spaces and stuff, you're looking at just conventional sewage disposal. It seems like when people talk sewer, they think they're discharging some type of corrosive material. There's plenty of businesses out there that do not discharge anything that needs the dilution of a sewer line. Sorry. Used to do this for a living.
Matt.
So Charlie's obviously a breadth of wealth of knowledge on this particular subject. So I do believe in some of the things that he said. However, with that being said, with regard to my own opinion on this, I think that this has to bring up a clear thing that you should know about me. I don't pretend to know everything about everything, and I will firmly listen to facts and figures and the citizens of this community in trying to make decisions. This is one of these topics that, frankly, I don't know anything about. I've actually heard it both ways. We can have a sewer. We can't have a sewer. So which is it? We've referenced some data from decades ago. In some of the conversation that we had during this hour and a half that we've been going on so far, I did mention that I'd like to base a lot of the decisions that are made in town on facts, figures, and good concrete evidence. That's the only way to transparently to run a town, to run a government, to run a home. And I think we should take a look at this. Let's figure out whether or not we can do this in an economical type of way, and whether or not it would make sense for the town to do so. I do agree with Charlie that there are numerous businesses that don't necessarily require a sewer in town, and we should absolutely investigate those. Perhaps that's the path of least resistance. However, if we deem that we can have a sewer and it is financially feasible and fiscally responsible to do so, then I think we should look at that, and I think we should just resurrect the topic, gather some facts and figures from some independent sources, and not necessarily just rely on what we think or what we've heard or things that have happened so long ago that it's hard to even know what the truth is of the matter at this point.
So the next question will start again here with Charlie. If you do not have knowledge or experience in a particular topic, how would you approach the topic and decision-making process? Would you hesitate and say, I do not know, or I will find out fast?
If we're talking about at a selectmen's meeting and being asked directly, it would be basically taking the question and advising people we're not clear on the topic, the subject matter, and research it, and then move into whatever arena that is to do that research. One does never shoot from the hip sitting at this board trying to anticipate what people are looking for as an answer without some types of substance to back you.
I realized that I just asked the last question without turning my microphone on, so for the folks who are watching, I'm going to repeat the question. If you do not have the knowledge or experience in a particular topic, how would you approach the topic and decision-making process? Would you hesitate and say, I do not know, but, or I will find out facts?
So I kind of touched on this on my last response, but to expand on this a little bit, my profession, I'm in sales, which most people would think is an opportunity to essentially, avert the truth, if you will. However, I've actually made a very good living on the truth, and I believe that the relationships that I've formed with surgeons and doctors in the operating rooms in our community here, the reason why I feel like I've been successful at my profession is because I have been unbelievably honest with them, almost to the point of disappointing them to some degree. With that being said, I get questions daily in high-stress situations about how do I do something, how do I fix this, how can I make this better? And if I don't know the answer, sometimes I do, but if I don't, I get the answer quickly. I surround myself with good people. I work for a great company. There are plenty of resources that I have at my disposal to be able to get these answers, and I believe that the same thing can be applied to a community government scenario for sure.
Sure. Do you feel the town is ready to handle the influx of students with all the new developments?
Got it. This is another question I'm not sure of the answer to, but here's what I do know. When you increase the number of students in a school, if you don't increase the number of teachers, what you end up with is increasing class size, which, there are studies out there that correlate increasing class size to decreased ability to be able to teach these students effectively and have them progress, according to, test scores and according to what, people are expecting. With that being said, there's also, so there's numerous things that are associated with this. I mean, we can even trickle it back to the override budget, which we're trying to vote for. And so whether or not the school is at capacity today in its current state, if that's true, then that's great. But let's hypothetically look at it from a day of tomorrow. If the override doesn't pass and we don't have as many teachers in the schools and the classroom sizes are in the high 20s, do we consider that at maximum capacity or not? And so I think that the budget plays a role in this. I think obviously the number of people that are moving into town play a role in this. And I think that the influx of people into town right now may very well be attributable to the fact that we do have a great school system in town. People do want to move into Southampton because we do have a great elementary school to support those children and those families. And I just would love to try to see that continue. So I'd love to see, more families move to town and attend a great elementary school. And I hope that we can continue to do that.
I've been watching the enrollment at the schools, and I haven't seen any dramatic spikes in anything in the last number of years. I mean, students graduate, new students come in. The town is growing, but it's not really growing in a phenomenal rate. It's a fast pace. It's a fast pace in this region. I've not had anyone from the school committees come forward to the select board or me privately and say, hey, in the next couple of years we're going to have an issue here. The issue is staffing and the issue is budget, but the structures themselves, there hasn't been any discussion that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. The next question will start with Matt. What would you do differently from the existing board? It's always fun to have the first question, isn't it?
Isn't it? So, I mean, I've been observing the current board for the last 3 months. I think that everybody's heart's in the right place. I think that nobody's personally out to get anybody in the town. Everybody's trying to do the best that they can, and I plan to do similarly. I think if I were to say one thing that I would change, and I do feel that the board currently does this, is that what's hard with the board, I feel, just on observing, is that it's hard to get necessarily all of the facts. And and all of the data associated with the facts. You're often relying on a lot of people, and I feel that we do need to do that to some degree, but I also feel like we could do maybe a bit of a better job of double source verifying or looking at the hard data ourselves, and rather than just trusting the summary necessarily. And so I think that would be one of the main things that I would try to do a little bit differently, or at least support the board in doing. Like, I would bring that characteristic to the board if I were elected, is essentially double source verify, do some of the data analysis, double check some things, make sure that we have our facts correct, so that we can transparently convey that to the citizens of Southampton and make some good decisions.
Thank you. Well, Charlie?
You're asking the chair of the Board of Selectmen to explain what they could do better. It's an interesting question. Being on the other side of the table, one of the things I think we need to use is that screen more. We need to take and project the documents and stuff that we're going over, so that not only the audience here, but the audience on television can see what we're actually discussing, to get a better appreciation of the complexity of the topics. I don't mean when Art comes in with an 89-page document that we're going to project 89 pages up there, but there are materials that we can do that with. The other part to this is people have to appreciate the fact that for the last year, the town select board was relying on a half-time town administrator. We've just come out of the shadows with that, and things are getting better. So I think if you give this another 6 months or so, you're going to see it evolve to be even more precise and more accurate as it moves.
How would you handle it if you learn that one of the other select board members had a conflict of interest with some significant aspects of the town's master plan?
If the question's pertaining to you're a select board member and you feel another member may be in conflict, the first thing would be to advise that other member that you feel there's a conflict. If that other member does not take appropriate action, then the second thing is to contact the Ethics Commission to advise them, because you yourself become involved if you do no action.
Out of respect for time, I mean, I don't know as that I could add, and being the last person here answering this question, I'm not sure that there's anything additive to say about this. I mean, it seems common sense that I think most people would recuse themselves to begin with. I'd like to think that humanity is still in good standing here on the board and with the community as well. But if it didn't happen, then I would agree with Francine and Charlie and George, and that bring it up, address it directly. There's too much information out there. Nothing's hidden in today's society anymore, and take the appropriate procedure to make sure that it's completely above board and legal. Thanks. We do have one more question that I had missed under my folder here, and we'll go back to Charlie for this one. What one or two different and specific management strategies would you actively fight to employ right away to address our town's significant financial challenges?
We need to take and have more accountability relative to the budget operation. We need to make sure that we are screening our revenue sources to make sure that the revenues that are coming in actually reflect what we are anticipating, and we need to take and evaluate our expenses in greater detail to determine if these expenses are all necessary, or if some of them are just being done to anticipate a shortfall in the department that may not even occur.
Yeah, so to reiterate, people absolutely need to stay within their budgets in town, and be held accountable to those things. And if for whatever reason the train has gone off the track in their individual department, then they need to raise their hand and make an appropriate discussion and bring appropriate facts to the table about why these things have happened, so that the town can transparently see this. With that being said, though, I do think that in each of the 5 major departments in town, we should take a very good hard look at everything that we're spending there, and maybe potentially take one step back and ask the question of, all of the services that we have today, do the facts support all of the money that we spend on these individual services? So each service costs a certain amount of money. Are we getting the derived benefit for all of that money? It's the same decision making that we all make in our homes when we want to buy something nice for ourselves or when we want to do something in our house. Are we going to derive the benefit from that thing that we're going to get, or from whatever it is that we're going to spend our own money on? Are we going to derive the value from that we're anticipating? And I think we need to look at that in each of the town departments very closely, and we're going to need to use the data and the facts to support that. And I think that each of the town departments has hard data that can be examined and summarized to support each of their budgets.
Great, thank you very much. So now we'll go into the closing statements by the candidates. And if you'd be all right, we'll start with Charlie and go down as we did the opening statements.
Well, I've dedicated my entire free time of my life trying to serve the community. Been on many different boards, many different committees. As you can see, I'm actively involved in not just the select board. I'd appreciate your vote.
I am fully committed to the responsibilities of the Select Board and will execute those duties with the utmost integrity and transparency. My goal for the town is to establish and transparently execute a clear long-term strategy that allows for steady, balanced, and sustainable growth. Decisions will be made using data and multi-source verified facts. I hope you will consider voting for me on May 15th.